Hey, it's TomScarf11, and since I get asked about it sometimes, I'm going to be telling you about what my process is for designing my LEGO Pokemon and minifigures. This will be in 3 parts. Part 1 is just going to be a general overview of how I come up with the builds and put them together. Part 2 will be specifically showing how I color everything, going more into the coloring process. And then Part 3 will be showing how I make detail parts like capes and custom hair. So I'll start by telling what the process is for minifigures since that's simpler. I start by getting out the official art of the character I'm going to be working on, and the first thing I look at is the hair. Since the way I start with them is I need to figure out what hair piece I'm going to use. Will I be able to use a hair piece like with Yunaka here, that the hair is mostly fine on its own, I just need to add some details to it? Or will it be more elaborate hair where I need to take a smaller hair piece and then make completely custom hair around that using paper and tape, but I'll go more into detail about how I do that on part 3. Once I have the hair decided on, I'll take off all the parts of the minifigure, take off the legs, arms, hands, and then color in each piece individually. First, I cover it in whiteout paint as a base coat to put all the coloring on, and then I'll start coloring it in with the actual details. Usually I start at the legs, then I do the torso and the arms, and then I do the head last. So first I'll do the face, and then I'll make the hair. If I have to put any kind of extra parts on the hair for detailing it, I have to do that before I color it in, because if I try to attach tape to it after it's colored in, it doesn't stick right. And I always do the face first, so it can act as a guide for the hair, because I need to... If I, for example, did the hair first and then I did the face, the hair might be covering the eyes because they didn't align it correctly. So that's why I always do the face first and then the hair. Hair is always last. Then for Pokemon, the process is mostly the same whether it's tiny like Pikachu or big like Torterra. The most important thing I always start with before even looking at the official art of them is I check what their official height is, because I need to know what scale to make the Pokemon at. Every Pokemon, I always try to make it to scale with minifigures so that it's the correct size compared to how it should be to a human. So the most important thing is always to know exactly how tall it should be so that I can figure out how many pieces high it should be. I'll take out a minifigure and just start comparing the height of where it should be up to with what that height is that it's supposed to be. And after that, it's just a matter of looking at the 3D model of the Pokemon and the official art until I can come up with a build that fits the body correctly. If it's small like Pikachu, that could take 10 minutes. If it's something bigger, it could take potentially days. Torterra, for example, I think this took 3 or 4 days to come up with the build for it. The base body was the first thing I came up with. Actually, no, the head, I think, was the first thing I came up with for this, actually. Then I came up with the base body and how to attach the head. And then I came up with the top layer of it after that. So I think it took like 3 or 4 days, starting with the head. The head alone took a whole day, and might have even taken 2 days to come up with the head exactly. Once I have the full body put together, then I take it all apart. Since, like with the minifigures, I color everything in with a base coat of white paint first, and then I actually do the coloring. So I have to take all the pieces apart and cover it in the base coat of white paint first. Depending on how it's built, I may not need to take all the pieces apart. Like for Torterra, I think what I did was I took off the legs. Each leg I colored in by itself. I didn't need to take the individual pieces apart. It's just 2 pieces there. I could do those at the same time. And the main body, did all that at once, but then the top layer pieces, I did each one of those individually. And then also, depending on how big it is, like if it's bigger, I can usually color it after putting everything back together. If it's smaller pieces, I'll usually need to color each piece individually. I mean, if it's a smaller Pokemon with less pieces, I'll need to color in each piece individually, because there's usually more detail on each piece, whereas something big, there's less detail per piece. Or if it's something really small like Pikachu, I don't need to take it apart at all. I can just color it in all at once. Anyway, that's it for the general process for how I come up with the builds and put them together. If you watch the end, comment Blossom Dance down below, and if you want to see how I color them, then stay tuned for part 2 of this. So see you next time.